Human beings, it seems, are the only bit of the universe we know about that talks about the universe. The only bit of the universe we know about that seeks to represent the universe and makes claims about truth-telling. And because of that, we as part of that universe are able to affect the ongoing life of the universe in certain ways, some of which we understand clearly and some of which we don't understand at all clearly. There is in our understanding and our knowing an element of what you might call feedback into the life of the universe. Human beings as language users have a particularly powerful central role, and that's a question to our understanding: why and how do we use language? The relation of language and consciousness in this making a difference to the environment we share. It's not a matter of absolute discontinuity with the animal world around us, far from it. But if we are looking for distinctives, this seems to be the area where we look. And just to conclude a very brief position placement, it does seem that we live in a universe which, while we would all have difficulties, I suspect, with calling it anthropocentric, is anthropogenic. It's the kind of universe that has produced conscious language-using subjects, that is, us. But what I am interested in is what it means to say that this is the kind of universe in which consciousness will happen given these coordinates. Because it seems to me that the question is not, is there some point at which God interferes to say, let there be consciousness? The question is, does an entire universe, a system of physical law which produces something not obviously physical, does that require some context of intelligence that is not simply the intelligence of one finite?
Correct.
I'd want to go in between those two poles of consciousness as an obvious fact about animal life and something called the soul, and ask about self-consciousness, about the capacity of human beings to tell stories about themselves. We are beings who tell ourselves about ourselves, ask questions about ourselves. St. Augustine saying, I have become a question to myself, as a definition of the life of human spirit. We tell jokes, we fantasize, we empathize, we even pray. All of that is an activity of self-reflexive consciousness in a way which doesn't seem to fit at the animal level, and that seems to me to have something to do with the fact that some of us believe we are capable of a relationship with that unconditional creative energy that we call God. And all of those things about our self-awareness, about our self-questioning, have their home in the context of material beings who are nonetheless capable of that sort of relation. So I'm wary of talking about a soul as if it were, as in the cartoons, you know, a rather ghostly form of the body that sort of flies away into the middle distance. And I'm happier with a tradition you'll be very familiar with, talking about the soul as the form of the body. This is how this particular kind of material being has meaning, has communicative and self-communicative capacity.
And is this capacity for self-consciousness, the Aristotelian type of soul, is that created by God in each individual, or is it inherited from the individual's parents?
I don't believe it's created directly by God, as if there is a list in heaven that God ticks off, sending people down in strict succession. It's something which, as several of the early Christian theologians say, emerges in the material life of people subject by subject. It's, to me, very interesting that in the 4th century you have a theologian like Gregory of Nyssa saying some quite evolutionary sounding things and saying, well, the soul doesn't come in separate. The soul is what gathers all this together when the material processes of development are complete. It's not that extra thing which has to be injected. There has to be a point in the story at which the proto-human becomes conscious of what I'll call in shorthand a call from God or an address from God. Again, I'm wary of saying God somehow bends down and tinkers with the machinery, but that there is a point, if you like, implicit in the whole process from the beginning, a point at which it will be possible for that proto-human to be conscious in another way, including the consciousness of the divine. And that, I would say, is the beginning of what I would regard as humanity in the image of God.